joined now by two U.S. Marshals involved with fugitives apprehension, U.S. Marshals Martin Keely and Chad Hunt. Marshal Keely, law enforcement in Indiana is saying that the U.S. Marshals Task Force intercepted the couple, actually collided with them to end the pursuit. Can you talk about just how this search ended?
Yes, I can. We developed information that these suspects were in the Indiana area and that they were possibly staying at a local hotel. Surveillance was established on that facility. A short time later, Vicki White came out of the hotel. She was wearing a wig. The two suspects got into a vehicle. The rolling surveillance continued. We asked for assistance. And a short time later, there was a chase, a vehicle chase, and the suspect wrecked. The car rolled over, and we approached the vehicle to get the two suspects out. We got Casey White out, and he immediately announced that that his wife had shot herself in the head and that he didn't do it.
Marshal Hunt, when we last spoke on Friday evening, you said that based on your experience with these types of manhunts, these individuals don't usually get away with their escape plan. Do you have any information about the tip that led to today's apprehension?
What this was a lot of good investigative work by the United States Marshal Service of the Gulf Coast Regional Fugitive Task Force and the Great Lakes Regional Fugitive Task Force. Our investigators, we were able to locate a vehicle that they purchased down in Tennessee after the orange Ford Edge was located. We were able to subsequently locate that vehicle in a car wash up in Evansville, Indiana. And from that, our teams, along with the Great Lakes Regional Fugitive Task Force, were able to put some additional information together that led us to the hotel that Marshal Keely was speaking about.
And Marshal Keely, you were saying Vicki White, it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound, according to Mr. White. The county sheriff in Indiana said the wounds were very serious. Do you know when this occurred? I mean, was this while the chase was going on, after the car had wrecked? Is it clear to you exactly when she may have shot herself in the head or got shot in the head?
It's not clear to us. And I want to point out also that to our knowledge, they're not married. But again, Casey White announced immediately that his wife had shot herself in the head and that he didn't do it. So we don't know the exact moment that occurred.
And Marshal Hunt, was it that they both purchased a car, or did somebody else purchase it and they stole it?
The information that we have right now, Anderson, is that they both collectively purchased, the Ford Edge, the blue F-150, and ultimately this vehicle that they were located in today.
And Marshal Hunt, the surveillance of Casey White from a car wash in Indiana was taken almost a week ago on Tuesday, May 3rd. It's hard to believe they stayed in the same area for this long. Why do you think they chose to stay in Evansville? I mean, do suspects just try to lie low somewhere?
Unfortunately, we don't have that information right now. Hopefully, when we have a chance to speak with Casey, maybe we can, obtain some of that information. Unfortunately, we had no information that they had any relatives or associates in the area, but we do know that they intended to stay in the Evansville area for a period of time.
And Marshal Keely, the local sheriff in Alabama, said tonight that Casey White's going to eventually be brought back there and will stay in a cell by himself with handcuffs and shackles on. What measures are authorities likely to take now to make sure he stays in custody and can be transported safely?
It's my understanding from the sheriff that when he's returned, Casey White's returned to Alabama, they will process him. There'll be an arraignment in Lauderdale County, and then he will be housed in another facility. And I'm sure it'll be maximum in terms of the security level.
And did Marshal Keely, did you know that they had that? Did they have enough cash on them to purchase all those vehicles?
We know that they had somewhere between $65,000 and $90,000 cash. We know that the first vehicle that was purchased, the pickup truck, that they paid $6,000 for that vehicle. It was purchased from an individual who had a truck for sale on his property, close to his home. So we don't know how much of the money that they used over the period of time that they were on the run.
And was that the money that she got from selling her home? Because I understand her home sold for $95,000, which was well below the market value.
Yeah, that's correct. We know that she received the 95,000 from the home, again below the market value. She also withdrew funds from various bank accounts. She discontinued her credit card also.
And Marshal Hunt, just, I mean, looking back on this, how does this compare to, to other kind of manhunts?
So, like I said previously, I think on your show, Anderson, no two manhunts are alike. But thankfully for the United States Marshal Service, we have this rapidly advancing manhunt program, and we evaluate, some of these past cases that we've had that presented challenges to us. And so from that, we just, lean on our, past experiences, the support from our headquarters, and every personnel and tipster out there that was able to give information, really kind of put all this together.
Yeah. Well, Chad Hunt, Martin Keely, I so appreciate your time tonight and appreciate the work you do, not just on this case, but always. So thank you so much. Joining me now is former FBI Assistant Director Chris Swecker and former FBI Deputy Director and CNN Senior Law Enforcement Analyst Andrew McCabe. Andrew, how surprising to you? I mean, not so much that they were ultimately caught, because it seemed obvious that at some point they would be caught. They kind of stood out, but that they were able to purchase 3 separate vehicles.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Anderson. It's maybe reflective of the fact that at the end of the day, cash talks, right? So they were maybe unique from other manhunts we've seen lately, in that they were walking around with anywhere from $60,000 to $95,000 in their pocket, and to roll up to somebody's house who's trying to sell a pickup truck, basically on his front lawn or near there too, and to be able to offer that person cash to walk away with the car is a pretty strong incentive to do that deal. But it is, it's getting harder every year to pull these things off successfully, with the ubiquitous nature of video surveillance and the ability of the media and, quite frankly, social media to get that sort of intelligence out to the public in a real-time manner. These things are harder and harder for fugitives to pull off.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, to Andrew's point, the fact that according to law enforcement, a tip is what helped lead to this arrest, and there were a number of tips over time. How often is that the way the fugitives are captured in the end?
Well, in a high-profile case like this, I mean, it's a pretty high percentage. It's probably up in the 90s. I mean, the Marshal Service did get a lot of help from the public, it sounds like here. And, there's a lot of ironies here. They had a plan. They obviously planned this thing out pretty well, but they didn't seem to have a destination. They were at a hotel. They were being surveilled at the hotel, is my understanding. And you would have thought they would have gone to ground pretty quickly, given the publicity. They were probably watching the news shows, getting on the internet, getting access to the information real time. So one of the most shocking things about this is that they were, they got outside the hotel, or they were moving about instead of just holding up somewhere for 30, 45 days with all that cash. That wouldn't have been a big problem renting a place.
Yeah, Andrew, did it surprise you that they took the risk of staying in a hotel?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Chris. I mean, it's almost confounding that they didn't take that money in the vehicles they were able to procure and head straight, for the border, just to keep moving, staying ahead of law enforcement's ability to track their movements. That's the best advantage you have, the advantage of time as the escaped convict. And they frittered that advantage away by holing up in a hotel, someplace where they could easily be spotted and recognized, and then be the subject of law enforcement surveillance.
Chris, I mean, what do you make of Vicky White's role in all of this?
Yeah, there's another irony there. I mean, this is not terribly unusual that you have this guard falling in love with a prisoner who probably groomed her over a period of time, got himself transferred to that facility just to work with her or be able to collude with her on this escape. But she's. You would have thought that he would have been the one to kill himself. He's the one that said he was not going to be taken alive. His attorney mentioned that he can't function out in the public, that he can't, without his meds, he's dysfunctional. So he obviously needed her. That you would think someone with law enforcement experience, assistant director of corrections in that county, would have thought a little bit further down the line and realized that she was dealing with someone that would eventually, she would be sort of excess baggage. She obviously lost, all judgment over the last few months or so, and maybe that's not the first time that's happened. She's lost and lonely and she found somebody, but it's looking for love in the wrong places here.
Andrew, I mean, you look at the local sheriff in Alabama, what he said tonight about Vicky White, that you don't know who you can trust. What do you think might need to change, if any? I mean, does this kind of thing just happen? Is this really something you can, I don't know, have seminars about? It just seems like such a, I mean, I guess it's, Chris was saying it's happened before, but how unusual is this?
Anderson, it's no different than the sort of insider threat issues that any large organization deals with, particularly, law enforcement or intelligence organizations deal with. You have to create a culture of compliance among your employees to not fall into these gaps, but you also have to constantly monitor what's happening. There's a few obvious red flags in this story. The ability for this officer to take a prisoner out by herself, that should never have happened under any circumstances. The ability to take a prisoner out for a medical appointment that doesn't exist, there's another one that they should have been able to find. But more broadly, to understand how how in this case your guards or corrections officers are interacting with prisoners and whether or not they are establishing relationships that could lead to some sort of compromise. That is a basic insider threat premise that all law enforcement agencies and particularly corrections agencies really need to stay on top of.
Yeah.